All right, we're good, Reef.
I call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for December 21st, 2020 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Oh, sorry, I think Amanda has asked that. No.
You could get a mover and seconder, and then I'll call for the votes if you want to do that.
Thank you for bringing me in mind. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. I have Christopher seconding. Now I'll hand it over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Reef Bailey. Okay, Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer. Councillor Heffer. Thank you, Paul. Councillor McBurney. Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sape.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-7.
Thank you. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Just speak up, please, because I can't see everybody that's on the meeting tonight. Too many. Not hearing anything, we'll move on. Public comment, opportunities for the member of the public to speak to any item on the agenda tonight. 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak to any agenda items tonight? And again, just speak up. Not hearing any, we'll move on. Consent agenda that the Council of the Township at North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.2 for information purposes. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving, seconder. I have Trevor seconding. Would anybody like to pull something out from those to talk about? Not seeing or hearing anybody. I'm going to hand it over to Amanda to do the roll call.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Heffer. Thank you. Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sape.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Kyle.
Hey, Reeve.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I just think Denny sent a message. I think anybody who's not speaking needs to put their mic on mute. That's including you, Mandy, as well. There's lots of background feed that we can't hear you, Reeve. So I think we need to put some on mute if that's possible.
That made a difference. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you very much. So I believe we're sitting at public meetings and hearing delegations. 6.1, Neil Vincent, Vice President of the Belgrave Community Center, Winter Control at the Belgrave Community Center. I'm going to call for a mover and seconder, and then I'm going to let former Warden Vincent speak to this. Do I have a mover? I have Chris Palmer moving. I have Anita seconding. Thank you, and we will not call roll call yet, Mandy. Neil, sorry, Neil, it's in your hands for a few minutes. Let us know what's going on.
Okay, thank you. On the Belgrade Community Center Board, when we advertised for a snow removal contract to the Belgrade Arena, we did not receive any reply. The contractor that we've used for 16 years had no insurance claims at all, but he said his insurance costs just had increased to far more than what it would pay for to do the work, and that with that type of an increase for it to do the job for us, he said that he would still be willing to if we could subcontract from somebody that had coverage, we'd be quite happy that way. The Community Center Board realizes that we are responsible for covering snow removal costs as part of the lease. It's just that we would appreciate dialogue and assistance from council if possible when the community center at Belgrade is still owned by the township. That's about what I have to say. If there's questions, I would try and accommodate them. Thank you.
Thank you, former Warden Vincent. I'm wondering if Jamie would like to speak to this a bit, if she would like now.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Reeve Bailey. So in order for Public Works to complete the snow plowing at the Belgrave Arena, currently we have a mutual aid or a mutual agreement, sorry, with Morris Turnberry that they actually plow that section of Belgrave, that area for us. So we'd be looking at sending a piece of equipment solely to plow the Belgrave Arena. We could probably complete this pretty cost effectively, probably a couple $100 per event, but those are some rough estimates and some just a general number for being able to make sure that a fire truck would be able to get into the front area of that arena.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to throw, Vicky. Sorry, I'm going to put it over to Vicky now, please.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Just further to the former Reeve's comments or around regarding the situation that they're in. As staff, we were made aware of it. Recreation staff was made aware of the situation on Friday, and we had a bit of a discussion about it. And just to add to the discussion here this evening, we're aware of other people who are having issues getting contractors to remove their snow because of the increased insurance costs as well. So it's not something that's strictly isolated to the Belgrave Community Center. We did do some checking around with some contractors that we are aware of to see if there was any interest, and basically what we were told is that they're all having to reevaluate whether or not they're going to provide snow removal services because of this increase in insurance. And it kind of goes back, makes me think about the situation we're even in, where Donna did her presentation with the 25% increase just in the municipality's insurance alone. Some of the things, though, that we, when you think about snow removal, there are some companies that, they're construction companies in the summer, and then to keep their guys working in the winter, they'll do snow removal and things like that. But what I understand the issue is the issue goes to going on municipal property to remove snow removal is what I also heard. So that could be part of it, because municipalities tend to have a higher number of claims against them. So that's playing into this as well.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor now. And again, turn your mic on and speak up if I don't see your hand. So let's open this up to the council. I'm going to start with Christopher.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Former Reeve Vincent. You mentioned that it's basically the accumulation of snow, which will be the problem, I'm assuming. Snow plow would do a good job, but it will pile up if we have such a winter. So that's where the snowblower does a better job. So I guess that's the issue, Jamie, as how do we get around that fact if it does accumulate to where we can't get around the back of the building? Any ideas?
I was talking to some of the Public Works crew. And I'm sorry, through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Palmer. My apologies about that. I was talking to some of the public works crew today, and they had mentioned there is railings as well along the sides of the parking lot at Belgrave Arena, which would kind of impact how we could push snow away from the doorways and then pile it in a certain area so it's not just pushed up against all the railings. So blowing the snow probably would make sense. If we got such a large amount of snow, we may have to do that. But that would entail some of the machinery to either be brought in from Blythe or Wingham to be able to complete that. It can be done if needed.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, it's through you, Reeve. It's the person that was doing the snow, or the company that was doing the snow removal before, are they just they're not going to do it, or they would do it if they were compensated properly for the increase in the insurance? I'm confused as to what the total outcome is and what we're dealing with right now, whether it's they won't do it, or they just require compensated for the extra insurance.
So if council's okay, I would like to open that up for former Warden Vincent to speak to that. Neil, so it's okay with the council? Neil, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, he would be quite willing to do it, but we are looking at 3 or 4 times the total bill probably to cover his insurance.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Vincent. Anyone else? Kevin, a follow-up or?
Well, no, yeah, just my concern is we're experiencing that ourselves in our own in North Huron on every aspect of the insurance front. Yeah, it's unfortunately it's 2000 or 2020. So yeah, that's all I wanted to know, whether it was he wouldn't do it or whether he wants to be compensated for it. So then the problem would be that you couldn't recoup the cost from the users for the increase, or why wouldn't it just simply increase the amount for the users for what it actually costs to have the facility? That's my question.
With permission from council, Mr. Vincent, can you? Thank you, Neil.
Well, we would probably be looking at going from 2,000 to 8 to 10,000
Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
for the cost.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to add, I believe there was someone, and Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's somebody been doing it for years and years and years, and this gentleman, we didn't have these problems before, and all of a sudden, like as Kevin said, all of us, this is hitting us, and it's just ridiculous, but we have to face these realities, and we have to help each other. So I'm going to throw it back out to the council again. Trevor, go ahead. You're muted, Trevor.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Really, I have the only comment I have is not necessarily regarding the situation. Is really, we are the owner of the building. If we want insurance coverage on that building, we are required to provide access for fire coverage on that building. It doesn't matter about the lease agreement. It doesn't matter about anything related, shape, or form. In my opinion, if we want that building to be covered by insurance, we are going to be required to do this. So at the end of the day, if Public Works has to do it, so be it. I think ultimately, as the former Reeve has mentioned, if the Belgrade Community Center Board's bill is going to be 10 grand, if Public Works cannot plow that parking lot for $10,000, we have a whole lot of problem in North Huron, in my opinion. So I think ultimately, it's our responsibility, and I would think that we just need to take advantage of this situation and move forward on that.
Thank you, Trevor. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to Mandy, and she's going to do roll call.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Just pull it up here. Counselor Heffer? Counselor McBurney?
Yes.
Counselor Palmer?
Yes.
Counselor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes,
That carries 7-0.
thank you. Former Warden Vincent, we want to thank you very much for coming out. We're glad we could help you out of this because we know you've always been there for us. And if I ever needed to call upon you, I know I can. So, and I do appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, we're going to go to reports next. Number 7.1. Appointment of the Committee of Adjustment for 2021. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the appointment of the Committee of Adjustment for 2021 for information purposes. And further, the Council appoints all members of Council as the Township of North Huron Committee of Adjustment for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And further, that the Reeve be appointed as chairperson for the Committee of Adjustment for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And further, that the clerk be appointed as the secretary treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And further, that council adopts bylaw number 87-2020 to reflect the above appointments to the Committee of Adjustment for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And further, that council deem the adoption of the bylaw number 87-2020 being administrative in nature and approves an exemption to the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 87-2020 to be passed at the December 21st, 2020 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Rick, and seconded by Paul. Thank you very kindly. Did the clerk want to speak to this, or are we fine just to move on? That's not fair to you, Mandy, because you've just joined us.
Reeve Bailey, I think Mr. Evans was available for those comments.
Thank you very kindly. Sorry, Dwayne, go ahead.
No problem. That's okay. So just this is, as been indicated, a bit of administrative matter. So the Committee of Adjustment is the statutory tribunal with the authority delegated to council in the provisions of the Planning Act. And the purpose of the committee is to hold public hearings to make decisions on minor variance applications submitted pursuant to Section 45 of the Planning Act. It is a quasi-judicial tribunal, independent, autonomous from council and municipal administration, and the committee's decisions may be appealed to the local planning tribunal. As a reminder, the Committee of Adjustment meets on an as-needed basis to consider applications. The meetings are generally held at 5:30 prior to a regular meeting of council. Under the Planning Act, it states that the members of council who are not members of municipal council shall hold office for the term of council that appointed them, and the members of the committee who are members of a municipal council shall be appointed annually. And in our situation, all members of council are or constitute the Committee of Adjustment, and as such, all members of council need to be reappointed on an annual basis. In addition, as the motion reads, a chair and a secretary treasurer of the committee are also required. In the past, the Reeve has been appointed as chairperson, and the clerk has been appointed as the secretary treasurer. So as the motion reads, staff recommend that all committees of council be appointed as Committee of Adjustment, that the clerk be appointed as the secretary treasurer, and that the Reeve be appointed as the chairperson, again, for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st of 2021.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Any questions for Dwayne or myself? Not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to Mandy to do the roll call.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Counselor Palmer?
Yes.
Counselor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner?
Yes.
Counselor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to the Finance Department. And this is 2020-33 extension request of Regulation 588/17. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Finance dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario, MFOA, request for a one-year extension to the deadline for Regulation 588/17. And further, the Council of Township of North Huron support the MFOA letter to the Minister of Infrastructure requesting a one-year extension on the deadlines in Regulation 588/17, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Christopher seconding. Thank you very kindly. Donna, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Reeve. So municipalities have been working for the last couple of years on getting ready to meet the requirements under this legislation, but the pandemic that came upon us this spring, all municipalities have had to focus on issues relating to COVID-19. So as per the attached letter, MFOA is advocating for a one-year extension, which would be a welcome relief. So other pieces of legislation have been delayed for a year, and so I'm certainly recommending support for this MFOA letter to the Minister of Infrastructure. So whether we get the extension or not, we will continue to work towards the deadline. We have, as listed in my report, a number of projects. You can see the many projects that we have undertaken in the last couple of years, and we will still continue to work towards meeting the deadlines regardless of the extension. But I do think that as we get down to the wire, it would be prudent to delay it for 1 year. So does council have any questions?
Paul, do you have your hand up there? Oh, Paul, you're muted.
I was just moving something here.
Okay, my apologies. Any of the councillors, and again, don't be afraid to speak up. It's difficult to see everybody. Not seeing any questions from Donna. You got off light tonight, Donna. I'm going to hand it back over to Mandy for roll call.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer, Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. We're going to go on to 7.3 Recreation Community Services, 7.3.1. RC-2020-22 RFP results for the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Master Plan. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared for the Director of Recreation and Communication Services dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the request for proposal RFP results for the development of a Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan. And further, the Council award the project to the Development of Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan in the amount of $49,875 plus applicable taxes to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, London, Ontario. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to transfer $50,000 from the 2020 budget into Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Master Plan Reserve Fund. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. I have Paul seconding. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Vicki now to have us an explanation.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Earlier this year, as council is aware, we did plan for the development of the Parks and Recreation and Culture Master Plan. However, due to COVID-19, it was postponed until later in the fall. until we had a better handle on, how things were going to work out for us financially and what the year was going to entail. In late October, staff did release the request for proposal for the development of that master plan. And it was advertised in the local newspapers as well as posted on the township's website. The RFP closed on November the 27th. We in total we have received 8 proposals, all of which were from highly skilled planning and consulting firms from all over southwestern Ontario. The proposals were reviewed and evaluated by a team of staff members, and similar to the other RFPs we've done in the past, we used a weighted scale program. The proposals were evaluated based on project understanding, experience with similar projects, implementation and timeline, and cost associated with the project. Based on the overall score, staff are recommending the project be awarded to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants of London. Monteith Brown Planning Consultants is an award-winning consulting firm and a leader in the development of parks, recreation, and culture master plans. They have several decades of experience, and their list has hundreds, literally hundreds of master plans that they've done all over Ontario, as well as feasibility studies and et cetera. I would personally think that they are probably the leader, if not one of the top leaders in Ontario. Overall, the project's basically going to take about 9 to 10 months. Due to COVID-19 and the unknown future in some of these situations, we've allowed a little bit of a buffer in there, but I would expect to see a final report presented back to council in the fall. From a financial standpoint, the money was budgeted in the 2020 budget, so it's not going to have a financial impact. The only thing is that since the project won't begin until January of 2021, we do need to transfer that money into next year's budget to go forward. And in terms of future considerations and things, the recommendations or the Parks and Recreation Master Plan will entail an action plan. This action plan will basically, I prioritize the things that we need to do as a municipality to be able to meet the needs, the current needs and the future needs of the community. Those recommendations will be prioritized in 3 categories: short-term, medium-term, and long-term, similar to what was done with the strategic plan that we completed. And there may be recommendations that come out of there that will need to be reflected in capital plans and so on in the future. But I think it's a good move. It's going to be very helpful, and it's a good move to help us address future growth as well. So as we're planning for Hutton Heights and we're planning for other subdivisions, whether it's the Rutledge subdivision, Hutton Heights, or the trailer park, or wherever, it gives us an idea what our needs are going to be. So I think it's a really good idea that we proceed with this. One of the things I wanted to point out, though, that I usually don't touch on this in my reports and things, but when I was going through looking at the relationship to the strategic plan, this is one of the items that is specifically identified in the strategic plan. So it will be something that we'll be able to say that we completed. And it also relates to a few of the other goals as well.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Now I'm going to open it up to councilors. Councilors, questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Trevor.
Bailey, thank you. Question for Vicki through you, Your Worship. Does the cost associated to this master plan include all public consultation that they would take into consideration while making this plan?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? speak up if I don't see your hand. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Through you, Reed Bailey. To Vicky, they of course will be coming to give us a lowdown of the whole plan that they're doing. So we have lots of questions for them then.
For you, Reeve Bailey, yes, that's correct. They will be doing a presentation to council on their final report, and council will have an opportunity to provide input into this process as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing Andy, I'm gonna hand it over to Amanda for the vote.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Deputy Reeve Sipe. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that carries 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 7.3.2. 2020-23 resignation from the North Huron Museum Committee. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Recreation and Communication Services dated December 21st, 2020 regarding a seat vacant at the Museum Committee for information purposes. And further, that the Council accepts with regret the resignation of Brock Bowden, Blythe Ward Public Representation for the Museum Committee. And further, that the Council grants an exception to the composition of the Museum Committee as established by the museum terms of reference and authorizes the continuation of the Museum Committee with 8 members, 2 being publicly appointed representatives. And further, that the bylaw number 25-2019 being a committee appointment bylaw be amended to reflect the vacancy. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving and I have Anita seconding. Thank you very much. Paul, did you want to talk to this one a bit?
You, Reeve. Yes, we only have 2 reports left, and Mr. Vodden was not involved in any of those two reports. So he won't have any bearing in any things in a sense that are going to be done. So I'd say that we shouldn't have to replace him. We're down to about 1 meeting left and another part 1 maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this? I'm not seeing any hands go up, so I'm going to hand it over to Mandy again for the vote.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum. Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, that carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mandy. 7.3.3, 2020-24 replacement of the stationary cycle at the North Huron Fitness Center. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Communication Services dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the replacement of the stationary cycles for the fitness center at the North Huron West Cass Community Complex for information purposes. And further, the Council award the contract for those purchases and supply of 11 CXC training cycles in the amount of $19,060 plus HST to Johnson Health Technologies Canada Commercial Inc. And further, that the remaining funds of $940 be transferred to reserves for the replacement of other fitness equipment for the North Huron West Cass Community Complex. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Trevor seconding. I'm going to open it up. Oh no, Ashley, I'm going to let Vicky speak to this. Sorry, Vic.
That's okay. Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So similar to the recreation, parks recreation master plan and culture master plan, forgive me. This this item or project, capital project, was identified as part of the 2020 budget process, and was postponed in April, after the budget had been approved, and then COVID-19 hit us. So it was one of the ones that was postponed to later in the year, again, to see where we're financially and things like that. So staff have issued an RFP, or I shouldn't say an RFP, an RFQ, request for quotation, for the replacement of these cycles. And we received 3 quotations, and the quotations received ranged in price from the $19,060 to $31,110, excluding HST. Staff have reviewed the quotations and the specifications for each product recommended based on the needs of the fitness center clients, and considered, the proposed product, the warranty, and things like that, and what the needs of the overall clients are. And we're recommending that the purchase be awarded to Johnson Health Technologies in the amount of the $19,060. Again, with respect to financial impact, this was included in the 2020 budget. So there should be no financial impact. There is a small cost savings that will be realized. And we would like to have that transferred back into reserves, for future replacement of other equipment, and things like that. Again, all of our equipment, whether it's mechanical equipment, or it's fitness equipment, or just the age of the buildings, everything is aging. Those cycles were original to the opening of the facility and things. So, just for in the future, we just want to try to put away as much money as we can so that we can replace those things as needed, due to their age and repairs and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. I'm going to open it up to the floor now. Questions, comments, concerns. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve Bailey, to Vicki. The cycles are fairly substantial units in themselves. Do they hold any secondhand value to, like, what happens to the older equipment that we have? Is there any way of recuperating anything from them?
Through you, your worship. Yes, they do have some value, and that's been taken into consideration with these quotes. Trade-in value.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so just to follow up, so then the company that we're purchasing from removes the older ones and takes them back?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think I seen Chris had his hand up.
Councillor Faulkner asked the same question.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
Through you, your worship, just to further comment on that, what's occurring is there are more and more repairs having to be done to those cycles and things. So there is some value to them because they are commercial grade, but it's not as high as what you may think in terms of that because of their age and the amount of breakdown. The other issue with these cycles is that it's hard to find the replacement parts for it, and you basically use the parts from one cycle to repair the other. That's what we've been dealing with.
Okay, thank you very much, Vicki. I have Paul. Paul, you're muted. Yep.
Through you, Reeve, to Vicki, do they get a fair bit of use during what's been going on, like over the last few months? Like, do they get much use of the bikes?
Through you, your worship, yes. They are actually used as part of the group fitness program that we've offered. We've had to move that down into the hot stove lounge due to COVID-19 distancing restrictions and things like that, but they do get the use, yes.
Okay, anyone else? I'll go ahead, Chris. Thank you.
I just thought of something through you, Reeve, to Vicki. Is the model of bike, is it a popular one? Is it one that should be around for many, many years? I'm thinking of repairs.
Through your worship, yes, it is one that it comes with a very good warranty and things. So that was one of the reasons why we were leaning toward that model.
Thank you, Vicki. Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone's hand up or hearing anyone, so I'm going to hand it over to Amanda again to do the vote.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Heffer?
No.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson? Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
So that carries 6-1.
Thank you, Mandy. 7.3.4 RC 2020-23 renewal of the Blythe Community Center lease agreement. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated December 21st, 2020 regarding renewal of the Belgrave Community Center agreement for information purposes. And further, the Council considers the renewal of the Belgrave Community Center agreement to be in a time-sensitive matter and grants an exception to the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw, allowing bylaw 93-2020 being a bylaw authorizing the Reeve and the CEO deputy clerk to sign on the execute an agreement between the Township of the Belgrave Community Center Board to be adopted at the December 21st, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving and I have Chris seconding. Questions, comments, or concerns? Kevin?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Yeah, I'm just thinking with the renewal of the Belgrave Community Center lease coming directly after a request for extra services from the municipality from the previous lease, whether there should be some cost recovery ability for our added expenses.
I'm going to hand it over to Vicki for comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. I may need to be, I may need some comment from the CAO and the Director of Public Works on this, but I believe that the idea was that there would be some type of cost or charge going to the Belgrave Community Center for the snow removal that was separate from this agreement. When we were notified of this last week, this report was already prepared, and it was a bit of a, unfortunately, something had come forward at the last minute on Friday, to be quite honest. So through discussions between the Director of Finance, Director of Public Works, CEO, and myself, we decided to keep the two separate going forward, because we're not really sure what's going to happen in the future as well in terms of these insurance rates and things that are going on. So we felt we should treat it separately. But Councillor Faulkner is correct in that there is money being allocated through here for those services, whether it be provided privately or by the Public Works Department. So I may need some comment from them to address his specific comments. I'm not sure, but my understanding is that we would be looking for them to compensate the Public Works Department.
Okay. As a follow-up question, the new lease agreement, was it rewritten and the snow removal portion of the renters was removed from the contract?
Through you, Reeve Bailey, no, the snow removal was not removed. So the compensation that is in here would include compensation for them to hire a private contractor to remove the snow. So that's how it's written at this moment. So my understanding is that there would have to be some type of compensation from the Belgrave Community Center back to Public Works for snow removal. is that clear, Councillor Faulkner, or no?
I'm going to get.
Okay, let me try again. This agreement, the contribution that goes to the Belgrade Community Center, the contribution from the township is for the overall operations, including snow removal. When we were made aware of the issue on Friday, the amount was not reduced to allow the township to do it. So my understanding is that Public Works would have to invoice the Belgrave Community Center for the snow removal that would be done based on need. If council agreed to move forward with that.
Yeah, and Vicky, I'm going to follow up on that too. And if former Warden Vincent's still on the line, he can too. My conversations were with Neil where that they understood that they would have to pay for the snow removal, whether it's an outside contractor or the township of North Huron. So that was not an issue. The issue was they could not get service. I see Neil's back on the line now. So with council's permission, I'd like Neil to address that too, if it's okay. And I'm seeing everybody shake their head, yes, Neil. So if you don't mind speaking to that.
Yes, Reed Bailey, but we have been paying that it's a cost, and that in the lease, we are responsible for having that as part of our budget from the community center board. But yes, there would be compensation to whoever does it.
Okay. So is that good, Kevin?
Yeah, that kind of negates the reasoning to bring up the request for the discussion over the snow removal at the Belgrave complex, where if it's still a responsibility, nothing really changed. The lease agreement hasn't changed, so I'm just curious as why it would have to even be brought forward as to if we're not changing the agreement.
Yeah, I'll address that, and then maybe Neil can. The situation what we're falling into is this was a last minute problem for the rec board. It fell right into their laps at the last minute because of the person that's done it for years and the situation he found himself in. They did reach out to other service companies that just aren't interested, as Vicky had alluded to. And what's happened is they've said if the town will do it, we'd really appreciate it because we need the snow removed. The town, as Trevor said earlier, is responsible for the building. So if we don't have somebody over the Christmas holidays removing that snow, and there is a problem, it actually falls back on the town's liability because we didn't keep the snow away from the yard. It was just a snowball effect that took place in the last few days. Does that help? I'm gonna hand it back over to Vicky and then to Trevor.
Yeah. I'll try to explain a little bit further. So it doesn't really negate it. We weren't removing the snow in the past. This is a little bit of a different situation. Although we're the owners, this was not a responsibility that Public Works had in the past. And that's why we needed to bring it forward and ask council's permission, because it was not part of the agreement in the past and things. And they're in a situation that they weren't anticipating, and due to the weather, they had to get something into place and things. So it's not something that the township would normally provide in the case of a leased facility, but given the situation that they're in and what needs to occur, staff were supportive of it. But the idea was that we couldn't provide them with an amount for the whole year, because it's very hard to predict how much snow removal is going to be required, because we just don't know. So the fact that they're able to, they recognize that is a cost to leasing the facility and willing to contribute or pay the township for that removal, just seemed like it made more sense to have that separate winter control agreement in place. If things were to change with the insurance situation and things like that, they could obviously go back to having a private contractor if they could find a private contractor that would take it on, and without it affecting the lease of the facility.
Thank you, Vicky. I'm going to hand it over to Trevor now. He had his hand up.
Yeah, I look at it, the fact is that the agreement still remains that the Belgrade Community Center Board is responsible for getting it. The only one they're substituting is they're substituting the public works or their other contractor. That's the only difference here. But they needed approval from council to get that approval to allow the public works to do it, because if they can't, if they couldn't, then the Belgrade Community Center Board needs to find another alternative, or the lease needs to change. So that was the reason why the way I understood it, the reason why it was processed that way. But I just think of it as substitute Bob's snow removal with Wingham Public Works, or North Huron Public Works is really the only difference that's happening here.
Okay. I see Kevin shaking his head, so Neil, he's good. Is there any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
This is a good discussion, and I like how Trevor explained it. But we don't want to lose sight that it's been a good agreement through the years. We've got a lot of local fellas that are on this committee, and they work hard to make it work. It's a shining example of residents taking on a project like this and being successful. So we don't want to lose sight of that. It's good. Yes, it costs the township a bit of money, but it's far less, I think, percentage-wise than losses we incur in other areas.
Thank you, Chris. Neil, you're muted, but with council's permission, I would like former Warden Vincent to speak to this one more time. Go ahead, Neil. Neil, you go. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. The thing of it is, when we didn't get any contractors interested in the tender, we felt it imperative that we notify council of the situation we were in at the time, and that in working together with the municipal staff, that I figured that we could come up with something that would work. And yes, we have snow removal as part of our budget, according to the lease agreement, and we would expect to be paying out the same, or that's one of the things that's going by this year with insurance, a little more, but when an expense goes to multiple times, that is something that needs to be questioned, and it needs to be questioned by everybody. So in true transparency between the community center board and council, we wanted council to be fully aware of the situation. So we thank your indulgence in this.
Thank you very much, Warden Vincent. Any other questions or concerns or comments for Neil? Not seeing any. Mandy, if you're still there, I'm going to get you to call the vote.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
And Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mandy. Okay, moving on to 7.4.1, the Town Hall Accessibility Ramp. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Public Works dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the Town Hall Accessibility Ramp for information purposes. And further, the Council authorized the construction of Option B, 2 barrier-free doors, the dual ramp of the Town Hall building to meet AODA and consent to the approves of proposed alterations to the heritage designation. And further, that the council direct the treasurer to amend the draft 2021 draft budget by incorporating the additional $25,000 needed for option B and to offset the cost from the modernization reserves funds. Ugh. Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Without us, Trevor's going to second it.
I'll second for discussion, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna hand this over to, I believe it's Jamie. Okay.
Thank you, thank you, Reeve Bailey. In the summer of 2020, staff applied to the Employment and Social Development Canada for the Enabling Accessibility Fund. The Enabling Accessibility Fund provides funding for projects that make Canadian communities and workplaces more accessible for persons with disabilities. The successful application submitted by the clerk provided $100,000 in funding for the township as it met the priority under the small projects component of the EAF, as outlined below. Projects that improve the accessibility and safety of persons with disabilities in facilities where they work or could work, or construction projects for ramps, accessible doors, or accessible washrooms. North Huron staff recommend the construction of a mobility ramp that is able to be accessed from both doors. The replacement of 3 sets of accessibility doors, 2 external and 1 internal at the town hall facility, will also be undertaken in this activity. During investigation into the heritage designation for the 2 external doors of the town hall building, it was determined that the bylaw passed by the Town of Wigham Council in 1982 addressed external aspects of the building. The front facade is to be maintained in its current state, and this necessitates a requirement to maintain the heritage-style doors during renovations. If changes are made, the Ontario Heritage Act specifies under Section 33.1, no owner of property designated under this part shall alter the property or permit the alteration of the property where the alteration is likely to affect the reason for the designation as set out in subsection 29.6 or subsection 14. As the case may be, unless the owner applies to the council and receives consent in writing to make such alteration. The heritage designation bylaw is attached to this report for council's review. As council is aware, there was significant work completed to the front counter as reported in a previous staff report. Following this renovation, the ramp project would build upon the accessibility renovations that were approved by council for the accessible town hall public service kiosk and would also help North Huron achieve mandatory AODA compliance by 2025. Due to the heritage designation of the town hall building, completing upgrades, renovations, or retrofits is obligated to meet the historic and architectural features that are prominent on the front facade. Therefore, staff have completed 2 costing details. Option A is 1 barrier-free door and a ramp. An accessible ramp can be constructed at the far north door. The ramp would wrap around the building to end at a new barrier-free parking location at the rear of the building. The north door would become the new entrance door to the building, and a new parking spot would be painted to indicate accessible parking. Reconfiguration of employee parking at the side of the building would be required. The new parking area would need to be wider than a regular parking spot, and room would need to be maintained to allow access to the basement door and the Siamese connection for emergency purposes. The ramp would provide accessibility to the customer service kiosk area and would be constructed of concrete to provide durability. The drawback with the design is the potential lack of providing physical distancing during exit for people returning, requiring the ramp. A draft concept plan outlining the dimensions have been attached to the report. Option B is 2 barrier-free doors and a dual ramp. This design allows residents to enter and exit the building as designed and takes advantage of the internal upgrades that were completed due to COVID-19. Accessibility remains the objective of this design, and through this enhanced design, physical distancing can be maintained throughout the building at all times. An accessible parking spot would be incorporated through on-street parking at the front of the building, promoting easier access to the town hall. The ramp would start at the sidewalk and part in the middle to provide the correct grade to meet compliance. Option B would also provide for landscaping to occur at Town Hall and can be completed utilizing existing township resources. This will assist in reducing costs and can also be completed in 2022 once all the structural work has been completed. Staff is recommending designs from an architect or an engineer be provided to council prior to releasing the tender document to the industry. This will provide council with a more comprehensive perspective of what will be constructed. As far as financial impacts go, we have received the $100,000 from EAF, and the transfer agreement has been completed. During the first draft of the budget, a total of $160,000 was incorporated into the 2021 budget as an estimate for the ramp. This was broken out to be $100,000 from funding and $60,000 from taxation. If you were to choose option A, the one barrier-free entrance and ramp, the more detailed costing with additional investigation and additional engineering review, a more detailed costing was created. The one barrier-free entrance would be around $120,000 versus $185,000 for option B. This would mean that we could dip into the modernization fund for both options, where option A would be able to be fully funded without having to use any taxation dollars. Option B would remain the same as initially brought to council during the draft 2021 budget. So the relationship to the strategic plan is that it will meet goal action item 3.2, which is implement accessibility for Ontario's and with Disabilities Act requirements. And this was found within the strategic plan. So that's my report. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve Bernie, to Jamie. I didn't see it in the report or any of the options, the designation for ramp designs, that any of them have been accepted or any request to the Huron County Accessibility Board. It's a requirement for Huron County that all buildings that are being changed for accessibility, that the plans are run through the accessibility committee for their approval or any changes that they would like to see, because quite often contractors and engineers are not fully versed in accessibility needs completely, and I do believe it's a requirement through Huron County for the public buildings. Just wonder if you've gone through them to see whether either one of these would be preferable to them, or to make sure the grades are right, or the doors are and everything is right for the proposals.
Jamie?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, I don't believe that I did not provide these plans to the Huron County Accessibility Board, but both the engineer and these plans were also provided to our chief building official to make sure that they were going to be meeting the grades and requirements as outlined in accessibility standards. That is something, if council chose one of the options, that can be provided to the Huron County Accessibility Board.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, yeah, that I can see that, but it doesn't take into consideration anything in those plans for color differentiations for different levels or different textures, where door openers are, or I'm sorry, I'm an advocate for accessibility in Huron County, and Huron County does require that all the public buildings be gone through their department. I just was wondering if yourself or staff could explain why that wasn't done.
Jamie, if you want to challenge that, or maybe we could have some of the other.
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, once a design or cost option was moved forward with by council, that option would be provided to the Huron County Accessibility Board to provide them both when only one option would be ultimately chosen. With as well with budget coming up, it seemed. The reason I chose to do it this way was because I wanted to get your feedback as to which option you would more likely like to see move forward. And then once that's completed, we can send it off to to Huron County, the Huron County Board.
Yeah.
It just seems backwards to me that you would, if we picked one and it wasn't acceptable, that it would have to be changed. It's kind of like putting the horse before the cart. Or the cart before the horse. We're asking for their permission to take a drawing that we want, where it might not be the one that is acceptable to the county. I think it would be the other way around. That we would have a choice of what and take their recommendations as to what is required. That's what their committee does.
I'm going to have Dwayne speak to this, and Paul has his hand up, and I want Paul to speak to it too, Kevin, and then we'll come back to you. So, Dwayne, do you mind taking over?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of Councillor Palmer, but I think Councillor Faulkner has raised a good point, and if Council still wishes, could defer decision regarding this pending a review by the Accessibility Committee, and we can bring this back to Council at the January 11th meeting, if that was the wish of Council.
Thank you. Paul?
For you, Reeve, I'd just like to speak for a sec here. This meets the OAD requirements. I saw that on your thing. This is to Jamie, and I don't know. I've had 30 years of pushing a wheelchair, and I feel that number A is a good option. There's room in front of the door to the north there where you can pull back if you're pushing somebody or whatever. If a person has their own chair, I feel that I know we're not going to have the distance for, you're saying like for the COVID distance, but I think we got to look at how often that is used, and I feel the A is by far the best option for the town, and I would have been thrilled to have had that years ago. Thank you.
Can I go ahead, Kevin?
Well, I just wanted to make the point of you can't look at a specific drawing and only look at it from a chair-bound recipient. Accessibility is sight, sound, taste. It's many things. It's color differences. It's the proper slopes. You can't just think, yep, that's a great ramp, and think that we're going to cover all accessibilities. It doesn't fit into one category. There are hundreds of disabilities that have to be taken into consideration when you're doing something that's accessible to the public.
So I just want to mention that everything I've heard in this conversation kind of leads me to where Dwayne says we should go. I think we should defer this to a future meeting and let the staff step back, find out the details, what's going on, where we should go, get in contact with the accessibility department in Huron County, and all the things that they need to do that Jamie's heard that has come before, and bring this back another day. Can we just defer this, ladies and gentlemen? Do I need a motion for that, Mandy, or just?
You need a motion, Reeve.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table that has to be defeated then, right?
Carries are either defeated or withdrawn.
Okay, so can I have the mover and seconder withdraw that, please, if they wouldn't mind? Mandy, I forget who it was.
It was Rick McBurney and Deputy Reeve.
Rick, would you mind, whatever the terminology was, pulling it away so we can look at it a little further?
Absolutely.
Trevor?
I have no concern.
Thank you. So that being said, we're going to go now for deferment. Could somebody put it? I think we need a motion for that.
I'll
Trevor's
move to
going to
defer.
motion. Yeah, Trevor's first. Kevin's second. Any other questions or concerns for today? Not seeing any. I'm going to, oh, Mandy's going to call the.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Palmer? Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe? Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So the motion to defer moves 7-0.
Thank you, Mandy.
Reeve Bailey.
Yes, go ahead, Trevor.
I think one thing, I think basically what I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's staff haven't gotten a sense from this conversation that if something's going to be coming to council as it relates to the OADA compliance, that there will be expected to have some information in the report that would detail that they've communicated to Huron County accessibility community. That's the least I think that's what should be done, that we make sure that before we see it, that they've reviewed it.
Yes, I agree, and I'm sure they heard that too. Okay. It's always good to learn something new, isn't it? We didn't know. 7.4.2, Rutledge Subdivision, 2020-34 Rutledge Subdivision Winter Control Services Agreement. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the winter control services for the Rutledge subdivision for information. And further, that the Council authorizes the agreement between GJAJ Holdings Limited and the Township for the provision of winter controlled services for the period of December 1st, 2020 to April 31st, 2021. And further, the Council deems the adoption of bylaw number 92-2020 to be administrative in nature and approves an exception to the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 92-2020 to be passed at the December 21st, 2020 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin seconding. So Paul and Kevin. Okay, I'm going to have Jamie speak to this.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So this report in regards to the Rutledge development, last year the township was approached by the developer for the 2019-2020 winter season, asking if the subdivision could be added to municipal winter control program. PM Ross did confirm at that time that this is not uncommon practice for municipalities. An agreement was created and has outlined the scope as well as terms and conditions for the service being required. This year, the same request has come through, and we are maintaining the same level of service with the winter control maintenance. Staff are satisfied and recommend the agreement for 2020 to 2021 winter season remain the same as the previous year. The township solicitor did review all documentation prior to the first signing. Subject to council's approval, the agreement for snow plowing, salting, and sanding for the Rutledge subdivision would be for the term of December 22nd, 2020 to April 31st, 2021. This additional 380 meters of roadway does not negatively impact service levels within the village of Blythe and has been incorporated into the existing snowplow routes. Does council have any questions?
Excuse me. I'm going to open that up to council. Any questions, concerns, comments? I'm going to go with Anita. Anita, you're muted. Thank you.
Yeah, when will this be a normal part through your rebate? The snow removal in Blythe, do we have a contract for that every year, or how does it work?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Van Hittersum. We will assume the road once it's complete. So currently, there's only the first lift of asphalt in that subdivision. So once the subdivision is fully completed and the township has inspected and taken has assumed all infrastructure, that's when this agreement no longer needs to be brought forth. But we're not too sure when that's going to occur, whether that's next year or the year after. So that's why it's being brought back up.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to hand it over to Mandy for the roll call.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype, Councillor Faulkner,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.5.1 FR 2020-08 new pumper purchase for Blythe Station. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Fire Chief dated December 21st, 2020 regarding the purchase of the pumper truck for the Blythe Station. And further that the Council gives pre-budget approval for North Huron's share of the new pumper truck from Rescue Tech Systems at a cost of $604,500 excluding taxes. And further, the Fire Chief obtained letters of financial commitment from Central Huron, Morris Turnberry, and Ashfield Colburn-Walmanash regarding their share of the new fire truck prior to placing the order. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. I have Kevin seconding. Marty, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey. So the RFPs for the new pumper truck were put out in October, and we had a deadline of November 23rd for the return of those RFPs. We had 10 different proposals returned to us from 7 dealers, manufacturers. I've listed those in my report. There is quite a range of prices between the bottom quote and the top quote. Further, as mentioned in my report, this purchase was deferred to 2021 from 2020. The reason we wanted to get an early start on this project is because we are currently having mechanical issues with the pumper that is being replaced. We're trying to put as little money into it as possible and just limp it through until this truck is replaced. So everything else, all the other information is listed in my report. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Before I hand this out to council, I have actually a couple questions of my own. How long ago did you send those letters to the other partners about their share of the payment?
So I've been waiting to get approval from our council before we send those out. So they'll go out, if this is approved tonight, they'll go out tomorrow. So they haven't got those letters yet.
Okay, so you will not be buying the truck until we hear back from our partners. That's very clear, right?
Correct.
Thank you, because of the circumstances we're in now with everybody using stuff for a year and then deciding not to pay. Thank you. I will open it up to council now. Was that you, Chris? Did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, I was through you, Reeve. To Marty, I was just curious, how much money are you expecting from our partners? Just ballpark.
Okay, so through you, Reeve, the difference that what we've did is we put an extra $100,000 into the budget. So what they're paying is their share, their percentage of that 100,000. So it works out to their percentages, and their percentages are based on the assessments. So North Huron's share is 46.08. Morris Turnberry is 33.55. Central Huron is 16.98.
and ACW is 3.39%. So if you work that out on the $100,000, you know, Morris Turnberry is about 30, just below 30,000, or just above 30,000. Santo Huron's around 16,000. ACW's about 2,000 to 3,000 in there. The dollar figure doesn't equal exactly what the percentages are, and our percent's about 4,500 in there.
Thank you, Marty. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Paul.
For you, Rave. Marty, will this truck go up like as one of those gov deals after? Like, you'll get a bit of money back on that? Just curious.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Normally, the excess trucks or the trucks that we're finished with usually does go up on gov deals.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
So we're looking at around 270, if I'm not mistaken. How much do we have in reserves that we can move over to this venture?
Okay, through you, Reeve Bailey. We have a total, including the 100,000 that we would normally put in for 2021, and if approved, the extra 100,000 that I'm asking for, we would have 636,753. So the cost of the truck plus our share of the taxes will be covered with that amount.
Questions, comments, concerns, follow-ups? So we're not borrowing money. North Huron is not borrowing money for future pay down for this truck. The money's all up front, if I understood that.
That's correct.
Thank you. Very big one. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment through you, Bernie, to Marty. I was looking at the quote and the manufacturer and the and Rescue Tech. I'm surprised actually at the amount of quotes we got in. I thought under COVID that the things would be really quite tight, and because a lot of the things do come through the States, and not much is coming across. But that's a hell of a truck you got there. That's nice for coming in at that low. I was surprised.
And if I could make a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Faulkner. Just a comment also, Rescue Tech Systems and Rosenbauer are a very reputable company. They've been around for quite some time.
Thank you. Last chance for councillors to speak up, ask questions. Not seeing anyone. It's yours, Mandy.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Van Hittersum. Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype. And Reeve Bailey.
Yeah.
That carries 7-0.
Okay. Thank you, Mandy. 8.1 Town of Carleton Place Resolution COVID-19 funding for childcare. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the correspondence from the Town of Carleton Place dated December 14th, 2020 regarding the financial impact of providing childcare services during COVID-19 pandemic. And further, that the Council hereby supports the Town of Carleton Place request of the Government of Ontario to A, prioritize children and childcare as part of its overall post-pandemic recovery plan. B, develop adequately funded and fund and release publicly a comprehensive plan that can support facilities through the provisions of the licensing, childcare, and early learning education. C, provide increased funding to childcare providers reflective of COVID-19 operation cost increase to ensure the safe reopening and long-term sustainability for the sector. And further, that the council direct staff to circulate this resolution to Lisa Thompson, MPP, Ben Lobb, MP, and Federal Minister of Families, Children and Social Development for the Provincial Minister of Education. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor seconding. I'm going to let, I believe it'll be Vicky speak to this one.
It's not me.
No?
No.
Okay, so maybe nobody wants to speak to it. So in that case, I have a mover, I have a seconder. Questions? Trevor, go ahead.
I think that really ultimately this is just another example of another municipality that's in the same problem or same issues that we're having as it relates to deficits within childcare as it relates to COVID-19 and the restrictions that the ratios and the number of people that you're allowed to have in those buildings now are. So I'm very happy to support any municipality that wants to push the government even further as to restart funding or any other funding as it relates to childcare in municipalities, because as everybody else should recall, is that publicly owned daycares got the benefit of having other federal funding that municipalities did not get. So if you recall, there is the wage subsidy discussion. Publicly owned or privately owned, privately owned daycares could have utilized those types of funding that municipalities were not entitled to. So these types of support and getting that back up to the government to ensure that we're all on the same playing field, I think is an important aspect of where we need to be.
Thank you, Trevor. Anyone else? Kevin?
Yeah, so I was just wondering if there was a legal amount of times we can push send when we're sending this off to the government, or we just keep there pushing the button send.
I'm not sure if any staff member has an answer to that one or not. I know I don't.
Give them back some of the spam they sent us.
Got her, buddy. You got her, buddy. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Mandy?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Councillor reports. The Reeve activity report. I'm just going to touch on a few things. We're not going to have a 4-hour meeting tonight. I want to touch on, we're going to return to lockdown as of the 26th. We're going to be formally announced tomorrow. I want to say that your economic development recovery team took a big leap here. And what we did was we decided that the connectivity was a big issue for us to come out of this and work through this. And it's interesting, we've been pushing hard to come up with help, especially for the East Wawanach Ward and some of our constituents. I would like to thank Lisa Thompson for being at the table. I would like to thank Ben Laub for being at the table. I would like to thank Cody Jodry for being at the table. I would like to thank the supporters, the people that are the volunteers that are our economic development recovery team, and I'd like to thank our staff. We have looked into this. This is a big issue, and North Huron did step forward on this to try to make things work, and we are working behind the scenes on it as we speak. We're going to go into lockdown. All the kids are going to be at home. Children are going to be at home. And guess what? We haven't solved the problem, but we have been trying at least. We've seen this. So we don't know how many times we're going to be going back into lockdown. But the most important part is we need to really focus on this and try to get through and make things work. Because if we have to teach school from home, I think it's 30% of the students aren't going to get taught this year. And they need all the help they can get because life will continue on and they will continue to age and be out of school. We don't know how long this is going to go on. We're hoping it's less than a year and we'll be over with. But there's a new strain just came along. So when is it going to be over? We don't know. So let's live with it. But I would like to thank all those people for stepping forward and for being at the table with us. I'd also like to point out that for a Christmas present, Jeff Dross and Doug Kyvenhoven have made an agreement with the OPP to put a station back in Wingham. Those two gentlemen are giving the OPP free of charge a room, and it's the back of Petropolis. It's at the back of the Petropolis store, and you will enter through the back, and it should be coming sometime in January. South Huron Mayor George Finch and myself have been working on this together on behalf of Huron County, or trying for Huron County, because I think we all realize that if there's a family disruption or if there's an accident and your OPP officer is going to the washroom in Clinton because that's where his head office told him he had to, it's a long way to North Huron, the north of North Huron, or to Howick, or to Morris Turnberry. So it's very important that the upper echelon realize it was a mistake, and George and I will continue to work on that. But it's just a great effort that Doug and Jeff came forward with that. So that will be a good one. I think that's about it for me, except I just want to say to go ahead, Kevin.
God, I'm glad that they chose a location that is close to the action.
Yeah. It is. It's located right on the main street, and I can tell you where it's going to be. If everybody knows Buck and Joe's restaurant, the restaurant that has all the negative stuff about North Huron and especially Wingham, and negative stuff about our council, it is the building right beside that one. So if you can find that right on the main street, you'll find the OPP quite easily. It's right beside him. So moving on, I just want to say to everybody, Merry Christmas. Honestly, you guys have worked really hard. We've worked really hard. Our staff has worked really hard. Our volunteers have worked really hard. And we are coming through COVID as best as can be expected. And we've all done a great job. Pat yourselves on the back, okay? And we have, with everything else we have got going on, we've moved a lot forward and continued to work very hard together. It has been a great honor to work with you through 2020 and the COVID-19 that will go down in history as such a devastating situation. That's it for the Reeves report. I'm going to pass it over to the council member reports now, verbal or written updates from members who sit on boards or committees. Is there anyone that sits on a board or committee that would like to speak? I'm not seeing any. Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you, Reeve. I just wanted to pass on to council that the North Huron Police Services Board met last week. And we were introduced to our new interim detachment commander, as well as our interim staff sergeant. Their names are mistaking me at this particular point. However, they are excited to be here. They have definitely made a conscious effort to say that if there is ever a question or any concerns as it relates to service or issues within the municipality, that feel free to, obviously, like I've said before, non-emergencies, call the Huron OPP detachment. Obviously, if it's an emergency, 911. They've made that perfectly clear. They also had made that announcement to the Police Services Board on that day, on the Tuesday night, about the location. They were looking at it, I believe, that Thursday. So they were excited the fact that they have a chance to, as the interim staff sergeant said, he wasn't going to be picky. He wanted to ensure that he had something that was adequate, but he was not going to be picky in the sense of where that looked like. So I just wanted to pass that on to the council, and I did communicate there was some discussion about reconciliation. So I did pass on some of that information onto the board as well, about the billing reconciliations as well, so that they are, just as informed as we are as it relates to how that scenario works for us.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Anyone else? Not seeing any, then we're down to comments by members. Would any member like to comment? I'm going to start with Chris and then go to Paul.
Yeah, a couple of kudos to put out. The Belgrave Kinsmen, they held a drive-through pork dinner November 27th or 8th, near the end of November, and they raised $200 and they donated it to the North Huron Community Food Share. So that was terrific news. And then the Christmas dinner that was held on Saturday, the annual, they had 200 pickup meals, and they had approximately 80 meals that were delivered, and another approximate 200 meals that are frozen for future use. So it's great news. The community coming together.
Thank you, Chris. Paul? Paul, you're muted. Paul, you're muted.
Through you, Reeve. Yeah, it was good to see that General Chris was just talking about, and Trevor kept on going around the arena building, and it went really, really smoothly, like, because there's a lot of wondering just how's it going to work, but it was good. And then I have another concern through you, Reeve. I just wondered about an article that I read in the Citizen where you requested the county ECDEV levy to come back. And my concerns is that I wasn't at any meeting where we discussed that first. I'm just curious, was that a proper way of maybe doing it or not?
I'll speak to that. That was a request of the ECDEV committee. And I think anytime I'm trying to reduce our taxes, I think it's proper. I am your spokesman on county. And in 2 years, I don't think anybody's asked me anything about county, I think, except for Christopher. And Christopher and I worked together on the one project that came out very well for the farming community. Not sure, maybe one of the staff members would like to tell me if I stepped out of line on that, or any other counselors. I appreciate you bringing it up, Paul. I'm just not quite seeing what I did wrong there. Anybody else like to speak to that? Trevor, and then back to you, Paul. Muted, Trevor.
I guess I'm not exactly 100% sure what the issue is. Maybe, and maybe this isn't the time to talk about what the issue is. I just don't know exactly if it relates to county. The Reeve is the county representative. If this relates to county economic development, or is this just our economic development, like the North Huron committee? I'm just not sure what the issue is.
Did you want to respond to that, Paul?
Okay, I just thought something like that when you're asking for money back, I just thought it'd come through our council first, but if I'm wrong, that's fine. I need to be corrected. I just thought when I saw that in the paper, I just thought that we would have discussed it as a council, but I guess I'm wrong in that. Sorry about that.
Paul, I'm not sure you're wrong, to be honest with you. I'm going to refer this back to Dwayne. I'm not sure you're wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have asked for the money. You know me, I get things rolling, and I like that snowball to go down that hill fast. No, just Dwayne, can you speak to that?
Thanks, Your Worship. So I think just in terms of and just for clarification, it's with respect to the Economic Development Officer position that the Economic Development Committee had expressed an interest, and we had a conversation back at the budget meeting with regard to that, and there was, council had decided in terms of the $50,000 to put into the budget. I think, in going back to Reeve Bailey's comment in terms of it was in terms of other possible sources of financing for that position. And I think that's where Reeve Bailey was going with it, in terms of looking for financial support from the county for that position. And I stand to be corrected, Reeve Bailey. So in terms of Councillor Heffer's comment, in terms of, you know, there was discussion at our council table regarding that position. At the time of the budget discussion, Reeve Bailey basically went to county council asking for some financial assistance regarding that position. So it's in terms of how council views that, in terms of Reid Bailey's indicated in terms of he made the ask on behalf of the municipality, but but Councillor Heffer's point is taken just in terms of it was not discussed here at this council table. So it's really up to council as far as procedurally, you know, Reid Bailey may have wished to discuss it at the council table here, but you know, there's, you know, he is the head of council and he is speaking, or he is acting on behalf of the municipality at the county council table. But I believe, you know, Councillor, I understand where Councillor Heffer is coming from.
Yeah, no, see, Paul, yeah, I did make a mistake, and that's no problem. I'm glad you brought it forward. All my councillors, anytime you want to bring some forward, I've always said, we'll do it in public if I make a mistake. I'm not afraid of, I don't want to do it in closed session. It will not allow it to happen in closed session if I've made a mistake. Could be worse though, Paul, because you know I'm going to crack a joke here. Could have to send the money back if I got it.
Okay, nope, thanks for the clarity there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I guess there is an issue here. Like with this particular issue, it's worthy of discussion. That's simply it. Because there's two sides of the coin here. How does it affect our relationship with county? If money, I'm not sure where the money would come from. If it was coming from our share of the economic development portion, I have no idea. But if it came from there, then it limits what they would do for us, and they are there for the benefit of us. So like that's just all part of the discussion. That's all, Reeve.
Yeah, Chris, you know, you bring up a good point too, because as I just mentioned, you and you asked me to speak for, and this did not come before our council, about the issues with what was going, I forget what was going on with the farmers, but to me it made sense that it was the provincial policy fighting the county policy, and why does the county even have a policy if it's under provincial jurisdiction? And then we got that reversed. So really, again, that's the second time in less than 3 months that I've made a mistake, because I went ahead and got something done, and I just forgot to let you fellas know about it. But even that, when you were part of it and we were both okay at the time, it's all good, guys. It's okay. Bernie's still going to be Bernie. I'm still going to look into things. I'm still going to do my 40 hours. I'm going to step out of line. Put me back in line, that's fine. But I will still, as I promised the people that voted me in, I will push hard to get things done. You guys keep me in line, keep us out of trouble, and we'll move forward together. Great. Anyone else? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure that we're clear that, in the sense that if you are talking to something at a county level, like if it is a county policy, if it's a county reimbursement, if it's a county budget, nowhere does it require you to get North Huron approval to have your voice or your concern. You are the Reeve, you are elected to be our representative of North Huron to the county. That is your responsibility. When you go to the county, you are supposed to have a county hat on. You're not to have a North Huron hat on, you have a county hat on. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you are requesting something of the county on behalf of North Huron, what I'm hearing is the councillors would like to have a heads up of that you're going to ask for that. I don't think that's not a bad thing to ask. But again, if it's coming from a policy as it relates to the county, you are not required to get authority from us to talk about it. That is not, like, you would never be able to talk about anything by the time we get there, because by the time we have a county meeting, you have a county meeting every other week, and we don't have the same county schedule. So I think we just want to be clear as to the fact that if you're requesting something of the county on behalf of North Huron, that the county or the council is at least aware of it, is what I'm hearing. And then, but otherwise, councillors shouldn't be worried about you talking about policies that relates to the county, because that is your requirement. That's your due diligence to do.
Thank you, Trevor. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Where were we there? Council reports, comments by members. Notice of motion, we have none tonight. bylaws. 11.1 bylaw number. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, pardon me,
Yep.
Reeve.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was talking with Amanda earlier, and I'm not sure. I had a question for her, and if the answer was right, then I do have a notice of motion.
Okay.
So it's up.
Yeah. So if you think you have a notice of motion, put it forward then.
Okay, it is. Okay, that council designates the lots formerly known as the old public works yard in Blythe as surplus. My question to Amanda was, is it not surplus now? Or if it's not surplus, then I'm asking for this notice of motion. If it is surplus, then forget what I just said.
So let's let the CEO speak to that one.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I would suggest what I would suggest we do is we'll research that, and then we could bring that forward onto the January 11th agenda in terms of because what I'm understanding, Councillor Palmer, is in terms of whether the Blythe Public Works property has been designated surplus. So if it's been designated surplus, then the motion, your notice of motion, basically, there is no notice.
There is no motion
because because in terms of it's been declared surplus. So if it pleases you, my suggestion would be in terms of we'll investigate that as staff, and we'll communicate with you, and then in terms of bringing it back, if appropriate, to the January 11th, because depending on the response to that question, you may have a different notice of motion.
Correct.
In terms of, so we need to go back and re-review the minutes and see whether it was designated surplus or not.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
So there won't be a notice of motion then, Chris, until we get the information back, okay?
Right.
Okay, thank you kindly. Okay, bylaws. Bylaw number 87, 2020, being a bylaw to constitute the appointment of a committee of adjustment for the period of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick. All in favor? Oh, Amanda does that. Sorry, Amanda.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype? And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Bylaw number 88-2020. Do I have a mover? Kevin moves. Anita second. Mandy, it's over to you again.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Did you want me to read the motion or?
I can if you like. I thought this were the ones where we just already talked about it, so we didn't really have to read them anymore. Go ahead and read it.
That bylaw number 88-2020 being a bylaw to constitute and appoint Aaron Barrelis LPP as the Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and ombudsman for the Township of North Huron, and to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement with Aaron Barrelis LPP for the provision of Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and ombudsman services for the period of January 1st, 2021, December 31, 2024, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, and be signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
And we have seconder, yeah.
Yep. Councillor Heffer? Sorry, was that a yes, Tell? Thank you. Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum? Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype? Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, that carries 7-0.
11.3, bylaw number 89, 2020. Do I have a mover? I'm going to get Amanda to read it. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor. Do I have a seconder? I have Paul. Amanda, you can take it away.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. That bylaw number 89, 2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Huron Perth Public Health for the installation of one Community Sharps kiosk at the Wingham Library be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Heffer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype? Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
11.4, bylaw number 90, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Paul and I have Kevin seconding. Amanda?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. That bylaw number 90, 2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Municipality of Huron East to provide the services of fire chief to the Township of North Huron. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype? Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries 7-0.
Bylaw number 91, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving and I have Trevor second. Mandy, I'll hand it over to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. That bylaw number 91, 2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Township of North Huron and the Municipality of Huron East to provide the services of a fire prevention officer to the Municipality of Huron East. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype?
Yes.
Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Bylaw number 92, 2020. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. Seconder. I have Paul seconding. Mandy, I'll hand it over to you again.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Bylaw 92, 2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement between the Corporation of Township of North Huron and GJAJ Holdings, Gary Rutledge, for the Rutledge Subdivision Winter Maintenance Control. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype? Councillor Faulkner?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, that carries 7-0.
Thank you. And I believe this is our final bylaw of the year, bylaw number 93-2020. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Chris moving. I have Anita seconding. Mandy?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. That bylaw number 93, 2020, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council a lease agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Belgrave Community Center, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Deputy Reeve Sipe. Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, that carries 7-0.
Thank you. Number 12 is announcements. The next museum committee meeting will be held on January 7th, 2021 at 2 p.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next Wingham BIA meeting will be held on January 7th, 2021 at 8 a.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next regular council meeting will be held on January the 11th, 2021 at 6 p.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next budget meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 15th, 2021 at 9 a.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on January 21st, 2021 at 2 p.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next Blythe BIA meeting will be held on January 28th, 2021 at 8 a.m. through electronic participation unless notified otherwise. The next Police Services Board meeting will be held on March 16th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. Other business. Is there any other business from council? Staff? Not seeing any. Nothing on here. Closed session reporting out. We have none tonight. Confirmation of the bylaw. Bylaw number 94-2020 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Christopher and I have Kevin seconding, and Amanda, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. Deputy Reeve Sipe. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum. And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Adjournment. The Council Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, the meeting is hereby adjourned at 8 p.m. Do I have a mover? Paul, seconder. Trevor, Amanda, last call of the year.
Sorry, who is the second?
Trevor.
Trevor, thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe. And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
All right, that carries 7-0.
Thank you. And with that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and take some days off after the 24th. And we'll talk.
Merry Christmas.
We'll talk.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.